Ching Tien grew up in the 1960s and the 1970s. She hoped to become a journalist and a writer one day, but everything changed with the Chinese Cultural Revolution. Her father was jailed, and so was her mother. Her mother was taken to a work camp in Gansu, one of the poorest provinces in China, and Ching herself was pulled from school and forced to work in a factory for over 8 years. She witnessed dire poverty in China. People that were so poor, some of them were living in caves even, and they had no access to running water and to plumbing. These memories were seared in Ching's mind. They never left her, even when she immigrated to Canada in 1983. What Ching built for over 1,000 girls who, like other women and girls in this world, hold up half the sky is nothing short of amazing. This is her story.
Welcome to Sipping On Stories, where we take you into the lives of diverse and unique change makers who turn anxiety, fear, and passion into powerful recipes for success. Good stories build insightful connections, but great stories, now that's something special. Today's story is one of those stories.
Hi, my name is Rose McInerney. Welcome back to Sipping on Stories. I am your host. I hope you're going to hit that subscribe button for Sipping on Stories and come back if you like what you heard today. We are meeting with Ching Tien. We are also, for all you YouTubers out there, we're also on YouTube with our own channels. So there's something fun about watching the interviews as well. And a quick shout out, of course, to womanscape.com. They are a living library of change makers, people making history and progress for the world. So I'd encourage you to check them out at womanscape.com, as well as their WS volumes. These are collections of stories bound together that have pretty cool, artful, creative insights for you. So into our lounge today, we are sipping on what I'm going to call Half the Sky with Ching Tien. Ching is a woman who was born and raised in Beijing, China, and has quite the story to tell. A little bit about Ching, but before we get into that, I'm going to tell you what I'm sipping on today. I am sipping on, and I say this wrong every single time, I call it Perua tea. I know it's not Perua, I think it's Puer tea. It's got a funky spelling, but here's what's cool about it. It's not alcoholic, but it is fermented. It's the rolling and the drying of tea leaves in China. And they are fermented afterwards and have this rich kind of organic soil, earthy kind of taste. Perua tea, as I'm going to keep calling it, is very medicinal. It's great if you've got cholesterol or heart issues. And Chinese people have this every single day. It's an elixir for staying young and healthy. And I think around the world, Chinese people, many of whom are not influenced by all the eating habits of us Westerners, they live good, long lives. So I think that tea is definitely doing something. And on to Ching. Her story is so compelling because she grew up in Beijing, and she doesn't say herself that she's a child of privilege, but she, as a young girl in the 60s, does have access to a great education, she and her siblings. And it is during the period when the Cultural Revolution comes into play that Ching's world turns upside down. Hoping to be a writer or a journalist, everything changes when she and her mother move to the Gansu province. And her mother is a doctor and is traveling around to smaller little counties or rural areas of really great poverty. And Ching is able to see a different part of the world and in a different way that people in China are living. And it makes an impression on her that years later, she comes back to China. She leaves China in 1983 and she comes back to go and try to do something to make a difference with what she remembers. And of course, you fast forward during Ching's emigration to Canada and coming back, the country has changed quite a bit, but she still sees the need for helping young girls. And that's pretty compelling no matter what country you live in. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring Ching into the Sipping on Story Lounge, and you can hear it from her and her experiences. Let's say hi to Ching now. Well, I am so excited and so honored to welcome you to Sipping on Stories. Hi, Ching. How are you today?
Great. Nice to see you, Rose.
Oh, thanks.
Very nice. Thank you for inviting me to your show.
Oh, you're so welcome. This is, honestly, I am so excited for a couple of reasons. The first is I haven't seen you in a little while. So it's lovely to see you there in BC. And we can chat for a little moment about what's happening there, but also because I think your story could not be more timely right now with what is going on in the world, the fact that you are living in Canada and truly continuing for the last 15 years to work with women and girls in China and to lift them up. So let's start with the BC one, because that's probably a little less political and easier to do today. What's it like in British Columbia? Is it sort of, are you seeing the same things as what's happening in California and fires and that kind of upheaval?
Yeah, we, the sky is very blue outside. I think we had maybe a week of very, hard time. The air was bad and the sky was gray. Some people couldn't go out. And after some rain last week, it's all cleared out.
Nice.
It's a beautiful fall day.
Wow. Okay. And it doesn't get any nicer. Having been to British Columbia a number of times now. Yeah, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous country. So I'm glad you're there under blue skies. And I am sipping on some tea today, which I think you are too. So cheers, Ching.
Cheers.
And I have to tell you what kind of tea I'm sipping on as well. This is Perua tea. Did I say it right?
Pu'er
tea. Yes.
From Yunnan province.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a fermented tea.
It's a fermented tea. I think I must have had like a flashing tourist sign or something on my head. I found myself when I was in Beijing, I was whisked into this beautiful tea shop. And I didn't realize that tea could be like fine wine. And that it can be fermented for 20 years and it's pretty pricey too, isn't it? Yeah. I spent
especially these years. Yeah.
Is it too? Yeah. Anyway, but I really do love it. So I feel like I'm getting healthy as we start to sip on your story. And I think, so I was thinking about where to start with this. And I know that you and I met on the streets in Toronto on Queen Street, I think. That was our first meeting. And I believe we had a cup of tea that day.
That's right.
We did. Yeah. So here we are. I don't think I would have imagined this, but your story really, really grabbed me back then as it does now. And I'm hoping that maybe we can just start by you sharing a little bit of the organization that you've created and sort of what the mission is behind it. Tell us a little bit about EGRC.
Okay.
Yeah.
EGRC is short for Educating Girls of Rural China. So I founded this, in Vancouver, BC, as a charity in 2005 with the, goal of helping rural young women to receive an education. Yeah, this is a very, tightly related to my own personal journey and history. I grew up in China and experienced some very politically difficult time.
Yes.
And I didn't have opportunity to finish my own education. So I was still every day, especially the COVID, I wake up, I just feel so lucky to be in Canada.
Yeah.
And be very grateful.
Yeah.
So this is basically, after I lived, I came to Canada in early 80s. And in early 2000, after 20 something years, I just with, that I have
You
two
couldn't let
children.
it go. Yeah.
Yeah, I have two children who were born in Canada, grew up in
Yes.
Canada, and graduated from Canadian universities and McGill and University of Toronto. So after I watching, my own children grow up in Canada with all the choices they have, and compared to when I was at their age, I felt my choice was very, very limited to none.
Yes.
So I just really figure out life is about opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah, for everyone.
And you've zoomed in on probably the greatest equalizer, which I think is education, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You have a really nice saying about what education does.
Oh yeah, for educated women have educated children.
Yes.
I think that's
yes.
universally absolutely true. Then educating women, even after 15 years I've been doing this. This is the most fundamental way to make better societies everywhere in the world. Yeah. Educating women and girls.
Wow. So a little bit more, you're so humble when you tell this story. You're basically saying, I came to Canada and my children experienced these opportunities and you wanted to give back. But I think educating girls in rural China also stems, as you said, from your experiences growing up in China at a particular time that was difficult. And I'm speaking to the Chinese, the revolution. And that was a time for you personally where your education was pulled away from you because you were in a great school and you were well on your way. I love that you wanted to be a journalist. You wanted to be a writer. Yeah. It's not too late. We could still go that route. I know you've got amazing stories, but, to whatever extent you're comfortable, can you share a little bit of what that time was like for you? Because to your point, I think in this time in COVID, it feels like we're, to some large extent, we're on a bit of lockdown here in terms of our mobility and our opportunities to move. And so being a young girl, how old were you when this sort of took place and you were separated from your parents?
Actually, I didn't separate from my mother. The Cultural Revolution, you talk about revolution.
Yes.
It is, refer to Cultural Revolution. And
Thank
also,
you.
Before I forget,
yes.
I just feel because you talk about the lockdown, right?
Yes.
Physically, we're being, locked down in March, April. Now there's a possibility the second wave, right?
Yes.
So, this is our generation, even many generations, we haven't, experienced a pandemic. This is challenging. When you say about the lockdown, that's also exactly the feeling I had. During this 8 years, my mom and I, we sent it to rural regions of Gansu province, the poorest province. I just suddenly came to this. I said, physically, you can be locked down.
Yes.
Mentally, right? Spiritually.
Yes.
You have a choice. You have
Absolutely.
a choice. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, I grew up in Beijing and from a family not that special. Recently, we're doing a book about EGRC's 15th year. I wrote, I wrote the article to the book. I talked a little bit of my personal journey as well. I came from a family valued girls, even from my grandparents, and also valued education.
Okay.
So that's why, from my parents' generations, my parents and my aunties and uncles, they're like 7 medical doctors and a professor and a nurse and a high school teacher. And it's all because my grandfather, he didn't have a university education, but he determined just to have children and even his nephews and nieces educated.
Okay.
And also from my parents, even my grandparents always valued girls, which I think I'm very fortunate,
Yes.
to all these years, whatever I have experienced and came to, I grew up with the support and the love, made me very strong. Yeah.
That's, that's a beautiful way of expressing that too, because, and I'm glad you sort of called me out on this one, because there is sometimes, people that know a little bit about China, especially the sort of late 70s, around 78, 79, when we got into the one child policy. I think there's a tendency to think that girls haven't been valued. And so I love what you're saying here, that, there's room, just like there is in any society, in any country, where families are making choices. In your family, given your experience, I mean, girls were valued and given these opportunities. You were at a great school. And obviously, I mean, your siblings have grown up and have professional careers. So it's not, we can't make that mistake of blanketing and saying, oh, women weren't valued, because that's just not true. So I love that. I know that those 8 years being pulled away and separated, obviously stayed with you, because you moved from the city. Beijing is a thriving metropolis, a beautiful, beautiful city, and you moved to a rural part of China in Gansu that was very different, and the conditions were not anything you had experienced. I don't think, were they?
That's right. It's a completely different world.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And those are the girls you're focused on, aren't they? The girls that are in rural parts of China that might not have the opportunities, just like in other countries where there may be less access to institutions and learning, the same kind of access. Is that?
Yeah. So we're talking about two different periods here.
Okay.
The first period, my mom as a doctor and I, we, her whole hospital was removed from Beijing to Gansu province. Gansu province is located in northwest China, and it's always was the poorest, considering the province in China.
Okay.
And during that time, just like you said, my school was interrupted. All the schools were closed even. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I had the choices also. I'm not only when there's millions of young people, were sent to remote, poorest parts of China to get re-educated. It's called re-education, including intellectuals,
right?
Like school teachers, professors, scientists, including medical, like doctors and nurses. It was very, different time, chaotic time. That's just the aftermath of the Cultural Revolution.
Yes. Okay.
So really living in Gansu, just gave me a whole, perspective of life.
Yes.
Yeah. So back then, this is 1970s. So China hasn't developed at all. Beijing is very different from the Beijing you saw last year.
True.
But on the other hand, Beijing always is the cultural hub.
Yes.
Of China, and also was the capital. I grew up even material wise.
Yes.
We're comfortable. We have clothes, simple clothes. We go to school. Money is not I don't have much idea, because everybody have a very similar income.
Right.
Similar income.
Okay.
Even your intellectuals, probably doctors and professors earn a little bit more than factory workers, but but not that much difference.
Okay.
Not that much. So, and but the rural region, my mother was a doctor. She traveled to remote villages in the 70s.
Okay.
So I didn't even,
you didn't go. You didn't go with her, right?
No, I was there. I was there.
Okay.
But we lived in a county, like a small town. But she traveled to the villages.
Gotcha.
So she really saw the dire poverty during those
Wow.
times.
Wow.
And also she brought back those stories, probably stuck with me, how women and girls were being treated.
I see.
You know, the
Okay.
girls at that time, probably most of them engaged when they're 8 or 9 and married they're 12 or 13, because also they
Wow.
want to marry a girl off to get some cash and dowry to
Yes.
find a wife for their son.
I see. So they're betrothed really
Yeah.
early, or
Yeah.
they're
If
right.
a woman didn't give birth to a son, you know,
Yes. That was
she
big
could
trouble.
face all
Yeah.
kinds of
I see. Okay.
trauma, tragedy. Yeah.
Okay.
And so this is in the 70s. But
Okay.
now we talk about
Yeah.
from 2005, after I left there in 2000, no,
83s, the 80s?
no, I left Gansu in 1978.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And
Back to Beijing? Back to Beijing? Okay.
for a few years before I came to Canada.
Okay.
Yeah. Then after I lived in Canada, after I came to Canada, China has had all these changes and economic development. So in 2005, I had the idea of how girls, particularly in that area, I know,
right,
helped girls to receive an education. But I really have to find out that after 20-something years, the need, right?
Yeah, where to go, how to do it.
That's right. Actually, from 1970s to 2005, things definitely changed for better.
Right.
And 15 years, 2005 to 2020 today, the things are even further, progress for better.
Right.
But at the meantime, between the gap between the wealthy and the poor, education accessibility between rural and China is dramatically widened.
Right.
And the things, people can get rich or financially, have dramatic change in a short time.
Right.
But the culture is not going to change over time.
Right.
So this gender inequality, how the girls and women were being treated, has improved, but far not as much as the economic development.
Yes.
So this is
the key. This is the key that you've identified. Well, and I think you're right. There was so much that went on in the way of changing and the growth of China itself, and the economic disparity, that sort of gap widening, as you say. I mean, China, from a population standpoint, is the largest in the world, right? It's the biggest population in the world, is it not? I don't think it's surpassed. India has not surpassed. Not yet. And then from a landmass perspective, what's really interesting is I think it's third or fourth biggest from a landmass, over 1 million kilometers, I think. So it's very spread out. And as you say, of course, in a country that size, you're going to have huge differences depending on access, where you are, if you're in the city or not. But I think what's really riveting about your story is, you started in Beijing and you had this transformative experience as how old were you as a younger girl moving with your mom?
17.
So 17, just the right, having 3 teenage daughters at one point in my home. I know what that is. It's an impressionable time there where that is going to shape you for the rest of your life. So then coming back, so moving away, having a family of your own, and then coming back and identifying, this is something I want to do to give back. You want to give back. You want to find a way. What's the challenge in doing that? What makes it hard to do this? I mean, to have a nonprofit, is it a difficult thing to be able to do? You operated in Canada, not China. What was difficult, or how did you decide how to do this?
I didn't find is that,
No?
I just have this, I didn't have a business plan. I didn't know how many girls I was going to support. I didn't know how long I'm going to do it. It's really just a simple idea. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think a few times, the big changes in my life, I think I was quite brave. I was able to take so-called risks.
Yes.
Everything, if you make a change or you start something new,
Yes.
and there's always some risk related.
Yes.
I think, talk about myself, I definitely, measure the risk. I felt quite confident, I was able to do it. But
Yes.
on the other hand, also I have that tendency, just jump into the water without how deep and swim.
Right.
And so there's a combination about myself there. Actually, I was really inspired by a program already existing in 2003 by UNICEF called Go Girls.
Okay.
So my daughter was involved singing with the Vancouver Children's Choir.
Okay.
And they were singing a benefit concert for UNICEF. Actually, the money raised that evening was going to the program in Africa, 2 countries called Go Girls.
I remember this. I remember this program.
So that evening, I was in the audience. I was inspired.
Okay.
So many years, I left Gansu, didn't even want to look back. I think I just. But all the hardship, the isolation I experienced. But the first time I thought of the stories my mom told me, how the girls and women were treated, and immediately I thought they probably just as smart as my children, even more.
For sure.
Why they don't deserve an opportunity?
Yeah.
Think where I am, where my children are, because it's the opportunity.
Right.
So just
right. Well, and I really like that. And I find that, all the storytelling that I do, it always is reduced to that, Ching. It is about being brave enough to just jump in, or a friend said this once, and I think this is good. You learn how to work the parachute after you've jumped out of the plane and you're on your way. So that's sort of what you did. You just said, I'll learn how to swim. I'll go in. And I've also heard you say before, Ching, in listening to you, because, you've collected a little bit of a number, I was going to say a little hardware. You've been nominated for so many incredible awards for what you've done. And I've heard you say this before, that in the back of your mind, that jumping in was about, if I just help one, if there's just one, then I've made a difference. And what are we up to now? It's way past one. How many women and girls, how many young women have you helped?
Up to this year, it's, we're still selecting some high school girls in the fall. Probably up to last year is 1280. And this year probably add another 100 or so. Yeah.
Okay. So almost 1,300 girls. And so maybe we can dive into the program a little bit so everyone understands what it is. I know typically at this time of the year, we missed each other last year. You tend to go back to China and you're there and you visit. What happens when you identify a girl? So you've got this charity. Tell me how it works. How do you find the girls and identify them, and what happens in this program? What is it that you do?
Yes, over the years, I want to make it clear at the beginning, especially in 2005, maybe the first 10 years of my work, there are numbers of girls without our sponsorship. Simply, they are not able to attend school and all at a great risk of dropping out because of a lack of financial support. And so over the years, when we identify a girl, we 100% evaluate her financial need.
Yes.
We're not looking at her academic performance as long as she accepted by school, university and high school. At the beginning, I had so little money. The first year I raised $27,000, and there were need of elementary school, middle school, high school, and a university. I had to make a decision.
I see.
So I made a decision of sponsor university girls.
Okay.
Why I feel university, because if you only can do so much, there's lots of need. I think that university education is a life-changing game. Once you finish university, you earn financial independence.
Yes.
You're able to earn the, like
an income,
and you should be able to, to figure out what you want, think for yourself, and able to help your family, your siblings live.
Yes.
So this is exactly true. Yeah, exactly true.
Right.
And so how we identify a girl is at the beginning is through interview. I personally did all these interviews and home visiting for many years.
Okay.
And at the beginning with our team, we only started having team is 11 years later.
Okay.
I didn't know. Right now, I have a small but very dedicated, capable team, a small team of young women. But I right now think the first 11 years, I just sometimes my cousin, my old friends, and even some local government officials was really touched by what, you
wanted to do. Right.
Yeah, they become my volunteers.
I see.
Yeah, so I travel to, to meet the girls every year.
Yes.
And also from the beginning, I decided they need not just one shot, they need every year, they need financial sponsorship and to continue to succeed, to graduate. And also from very early of my work, maybe I started in 2005. I think in 2006, I made a decision not only just, sponsor them financially for their whole duration of study, 4 years, 5 years of university. And also I think they also need lots of emotional support.
Absolutely.
So I want to establish personal relationship with them. I want them to get to know each other. So that's why every summer I travel to their hometown. When it's summer holiday, they're all at home. So together. So this has been a tradition for 15 years. But 2020 is the only year I was not able to go. But I have a great team, and they, we still,
that are there.
We still did our, annual gathering.
Yes. So, I mean, and that's personal commitment. It's not just fundraising and coming up with an idea and making it all happen. You're hands-on all the way through. And I think that's what is so compelling, because I have to be honest with you. I mean, after about 10 years, 5 years, it's going. You've got some people, you've raised some great money. You could say, hey, I've done a great job and walk away, but your commitment and staying power is really, for me, why I think you've been so celebrated by others, in organizations. And I think it's the reason why you've been able to, because at this point you've moved from personal donations to corporate. You're able to secure corporate donations now, I think, from a variety of companies that can see the value in what you do.
Yes.
Which is huge. So I almost feel like the word challenge doesn't even fit in your vocabulary. I don't know. Am I right? You seem to have surfed through things, and when you identify a problem, or you only have so much money, you're going in looking at what the deeper long-term effect will be.
Yeah.
And so what have you found then with these girls that have gone through the program? What's happened? Have they come back? Did they stick with it? Are they helping now other women? Because it's been 15 years. So what's happening with that?
Yes, I think that's a very important part of my work, or our work, to engage girls even after they graduate. At the beginning, you see, just like sometimes, talk about the business plan. I don't know how I'm going to do the business plan 15 years ago, make a 3-5 year plan. I still don't have a long-term plan, tell you the truth.
Yes.
I have some idea, because special things are evolving. And our work, especially our program, have to make the changes to fit the need, the current situation.
Right.
And China, things are changing so fast. so fast,
Agreed.
politically, economically. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's very important. You keep yourself flexible. You have
Yes.
the vision and the goal. That doesn't change. But
Yes.
how you do your work have to according to the situation and the need, especially the need.
That's really well said. And I think just, from an entrepreneurial perspective, that's what everyone is doing right now. They are shifting and figuring out what's the new economy, the new reality of, what our
That's
global,
right.
from supply chains and how we're doing business to business. So, you have a very keen intuitive sense, obviously, and this has taken you so far. And I don't see any limits for you, Ching. I think you're going to continue to do this. We touched only a little bit on the politics, and if I can add this to it, I think one of the things for our listeners, people that are listening to this podcast may be saying, what an amazing woman Ching is, what a great organization, but why would I want to give there? There are hardships in Canada and other kids within the Canadian economy or the US economy that are suffering. Why is it important for us to look outside of our boundaries and consider helping another group of women or other human beings in other countries? I have my own answer, but what would you say to someone that said that to you? We've got enough problems on our own. How would you respond to that?
I think, my ideas, they are, which is so true, especially in the West.
Yes.
We live in a society of abundance, and also we have the tradition of giving.
Yes.
Right? And your family or individual choose which organization, what causes to give, usually directly related to your own personal or family experience.
True.
I think we all choose a cause which is close to our heart.
Very true. Very true.
And also talk about the regional choices, like why not Canada? Because from my personal, experience,
yes,
I told you how grateful I feel. I am able to live in a country like Canada, but China, I feel that's where I came from. I had some hardship. I still see people are having some hardship, especially women and girls for different reasons, maybe not politically, financially, and gender related.
Yes.
World has become very small. Like we, especially Canadians or Americans, should consider ourselves not just our Canadian or global citizen.
Love it.
We're privileged. It's our responsibility to help others. Okay. Also, China, doesn't matter how you look at China, but China is important.
Yes, China is important. You're right.
I figure out, of course you can see, in the short term, are the leaders who are in power make the difference, making the policy, especially China. There's only one leader, one party, right?
Yes.
But in the long term, I think are the people. Among people are women. If we have a stronger, educated generation of Chinese women, I hope in the long run, will make a difference. So talk about why, my parents valued girls, because they are educated people.
Yes.
Right? So I think it depends really, for me, also on the practical side.
Yes.
I could have gone to Africa, Kenya, or South Africa. I've been there. I saw the need. But China, because I was from there.
Yes.
I know the culture. I know the language. I know how things works. I think there I can do most efficient work. But I'm not too sure if use the same time, energy, and my limited knowledge, I can make the same impact in a foreign country which I don't know.
It's a really good point. You have a number of wonderful things in there, and I think I'm going to pull out the global citizen card there, especially if you are a citizen that is one of privilege and you've had access to education, that there is value in bringing everyone up so that together we make better decisions and we live in a world that is more peaceful, that is more understanding, where there's a shared cooperation in terms of what's good for everyone. And I think to your point as well, obviously we're going to have our own personal experiences, our cultural connections and ties. And those are going to be part of it. But, from a personal level, Ching, and I may have shared this when I visited in China. I had people on the Western side say, well, why are you going there? Why would you go to China? And not just about the giving. And for me, it was such a lack of understanding of culture and an appreciation for the shared ways that we see the world and the shared things that just on a human level, I appreciated those things more than I did our differences, and that the differences were ways for us to grow. But my experiences in China were nothing but positive. I love, honestly, we have so much to learn from China too. The transportation system, all of the culture and the years and the heritage there are, the gardens are the most beautiful that I've seen almost anywhere in the world. I mean, going into so many of the tourist places too. So I guess I'm sort of rambling on about this, Ching, because I feel like there's a little hump that people need to get over, that it's very easy in this world today to make assumptions or to stay in our own lane. You could have stayed in your own Canadian lane, right? Things are good. You could have stayed there, but instead you've looked back and said, okay, I'm grateful. And so maybe in that way, by sharing what you do with other people, they're going to see an opportunity, even if it's not educating girls in rural China. They're going to consider. But if they do, our listeners that have heard your story, how can they give? How can they support what you do if they feel compelled like this? Where do we send them, or what do they do?
Yeah. So of course, donation also, is always welcome. And, fundraising, we have like over 400, girls in the program. It is a big challenge, especially this year. Yeah. But I just realized, I just want to add a little bit about China.
Please.
I think, it's always, it's better to include China rather than exclude China. So we hoped, we can eventually, things happened. We have to be very honest, including myself. Things happened recently between Canada and China, or just China alone. There's some upsetting, disappointment,
Things.
So I think,
sure.
Yeah, but it's very important, we look at it in the long run. And, we try to find something we can work with rather than try to focus on the,
on the negative.
The negative. That's how I feel, because we cannot ignore China.
No.
Whatever China, good or bad, is going to make a difference.
Too big to ignore. Yes.
Yeah. And we start from women and education. It's always the most fundamental, important way.
Agreed.
To bring people together, to make better societies. And second, you also asked about alumni, our graduate. I think that's a very important, thing I want to...
progress you've made,
progress, because over the years, we have our university graduation rate is 100%. So every single girl, is graduated. So this is largely, I think, due to the emotional support and also the social network between the girls and organization and myself. We
Right.
build this, they're able to, to turn on for us to help when they need it. And they're able to help each other. They feel EGRC is their second family. Yeah.
Right.
And the second, it's just also about 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe I found even though they achieved education, they become a professional, they found a job, some of them become mothers, and also they help their family, they lift their family out of poverty. But they
Yes.
face new challenges. Yeah,
Sure.
still facing the girls living, decide to live in the big cities. They're lacking of financial support and the social network.
Yes.
And particularly when 50% of our graduates went back to their home province to work, they still face the traditional culture expectations from their own parents and also from the society. So I decided to continue to help them. In the meantime, we established EGRC Alumni Association, and the girls decided to give back. We just finished, not yet, September 30th, which is a couple of days later.
Yes.
And our alumni annual crowdfunding is going to end.
I see. Okay.
So
that's the girls giving back financially as well.
Financially to sponsor more. Yeah.
Well, so, and I'm going to guess too, in hearing you talk about women and the fact that, they're going back to communities, the smaller communities maybe that they came from, they've got education and they have potential to be able to earn more. But I bet a lot of those struggles about what to do and how do I do that well, honestly, it's probably not that different from here in North America. How do I balance family and career? How do I take care of all those things and the expectations, no matter what family you're from, that your parents have for you? So there are things that we can all identify with, for sure. But I think creating that loop, that feedback loop, is obviously another way for EGRC to continue to just spread the word about what you're doing and make it bigger. Do you have plans for EGRC to grow within China? Because it sounds like it's been fairly local around Beijing and some of those areas. Is anything happening that way?
Our fundraising effort is concentrated in Beijing and Shanghai.
Okay.
But the girls are from Western China. Most of girls from Gansu, as I mentioned, and smaller members of girls from Guizhou, another province in the southwest. So there's two big parts of our organization. Our small team is doing. One is fundraising, including Canada. Our in Vancouver, BC, and in Eastern Canada, Ontario. So that's fundraising, and also the program to support girls beyond the financial sponsorship. We also have, right now, we are even included once a year training the parents. So that's, I found after they graduate, who hold them back? The
parents.
Value. Sometimes, lots of the time, are the parents.
Oh boy, I would have liked to have been able to retrain my parents when I graduated.
Just give them some ideas, so make them, it's part of their girls' education, not just provide. So to understand today's world, the new society, and the choices that girls have once they're educated. So that's also we also raised mental health issue, and also we had a first campaign called Say No. Even we touched sexual abuse, harassment, and the career,
so this is a much larger, broader education of the whole being, not just the academic part, but, which honestly is everything, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
They really, initiate a group of girls between our graduates and university students that just established their own EGRC's own Toastmaster club.
Oh, wonderful.
There are lots of things going on beyond
Yeah, and having the camaraderie of sort of sisterhood within that group. I know,
Yeah.
if you imagine anyone that's sort of plucked out of what they knew and they grow in new ways and then they return, they're going to feel like the proverbial fish out of water. It's going to feel so different that they may not feel they fit anywhere. And so this speaks to the mental health and the cultural sort of support that you need, the 360, so to speak.
That's right.
What would you say to people that have ideas to do this on some level to help someone else? Do you have any words of advice in not telling them how to set up a program, but truly how to make a difference in the world in their own way? Do you have a guiding mantra yourself every day if you wake up and you feel some days like, oh, this is just a lot of work, or how do you stay inspired? What is it that keeps you going that you think other people need to or could benefit from knowing?
Yeah, I think, of course, I have that kind of moments too, not even once or twice, I feel totally overwhelmed, a little bit discouraged, But the only thing I think, what I've been asked these questions many times, what, the reason kept you going for so many years? I would
Yes.
say the first are the girls. Because I see them every year. I do have, like through WeChat, email, and we have, I connected personally with some individual girls. Like
Right.
sometimes, recently 2 girls just randomly send me, an update on their
What's
life.
happening? Sure.
That's right. This one actually we sponsored from 2006. And she's
Oh,
studying like a 5-year undergraduate related to biology. I
okay.
thought that she was going to be a medical doctor. Actually, she's a researcher.
Okay.
So then she also finished her master's degree. I didn't know because we haven't talked for a few years. She's the mother of 2 boys,
Oh,
and
goodness.
she's still working, and she has a supporter. Then she told me she started a PhD program. She said, in the lab, I have lots of ideas and I want to do more, but I
Right.
feel, those newly graduate PhD, students, they have lots more advantage over them.
Sure.
And so she decided she wants to do a PhD.
Good
I
for
was
her.
just so,
Isn't that great?
mother of
Yeah.
2 and doing a
Yeah.
PhD.
She's doing
Yeah,
it all. She's doing it
yeah.
all.
So
Yeah.
that's what the confidence level and also the courage. And so I
Yes.
just think when I receive something like this, I just felt, so encouraged, inspired.
Really validates what you're doing. It's
That's
really
right. I think
amazing,
are the
Ching.
girls. And the
Yes.
second is somebody like you, my supporters,
Oh,
donors.
oh.
Over the years through this work, I met some inspiring people, because this is our 15th year. So I've been, look at our donor base. Some, there are few has been giving for 15 years. There are many
Yeah.
giving for 10 years.
It's
So
amazing.
such loyal donors and supporters. I just feel, so
Well,
grateful.
it's
Yeah.
it's so easy. I wish that you could personally connect with everyone listening to this podcast here today because honestly, being in your presence, Ching, I enjoy your company on a personal level and also on this professional level. I'm just inspired. I'm wowed by what you continue to do every day. I just want to say thank you for coming on and sharing your story in such an honest and real way with everyone and being unafraid to continue to build what you build. You're
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Rose. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, you're so welcome. And we're going to post, so you know, Ching, we're going to post details about EGRC on the website for Sipping on Stories as well and ways for people to give. And if they've got questions, they can reach out online and certainly get in touch with you, especially if they want to sponsor and help out. So
Yes.
thank you
Yeah,
again, Ching.
wonderful. Thank
I
you.
look forward to chatting again and catching up. Okay.
Thank you. Good luck with your
Thank
program,
you.
podcast.
Thanks
Yeah,
so
bye-bye.
much. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye bye. That was an amazing, maybe a little bit long for all of you listeners out there. I hope we kept you entertained a little bit more as a wrap up to Ching's story. Having gone to China more than half a dozen times and having a chance to go not quite out as far into the rural areas of China that Ching mentioned, I do know that there is such diversity, but it's such a richness of culture that it is a shame to think that a trip to China is not worth doing. I say this all with COVID as the backdrop and many naysayers and finger pointers that may dispute what I'm saying. I say this having gone personally and met with people that are people just like you and me. There is nothing else on this good earth, I don't think, beyond trying to help our fellow human beings in whatever way. It doesn't really matter if you give to China or you give to India or to Africa or North America. But the point is, I think that you give. And Ching shows us in this giving, what comes back is such goodness in the world and this lifting up. We all know amidst protests and fighting and anger right now in the world that we could use a lot more stories like Ching's of goodness and to see the healing power that it can have. So with that, I hope that you were entertained today. If you have questions, I'm going to invite you to reach out. Please hit that subscribe button to Sipping on Stories. If you are a YouTuber, take a look at the video. You can hop over to our YouTube channel at Sipping on Stories. SOS, it's kind of a distress, but it's also a beautiful thing here. You heard the takeaways for today. Women hold up half the sky. Women and men hold up the sky. We need to do our part. I don't want to sound preachy, but get out there and feel what it's like to do some good. Revel in Ching's story. Try to step aside from the politics and be an ambassador of this world and connect on a human level, and you'd be amazed how much progress we can make. I am going to thank you for listening today again. I want you to know that you matter, that you are loved, you are appreciated. This life is a short one. Make every sip count. Look forward to talking to you again, and that's a wrap.